We're live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mahone Bay Town Council Live. We acknowledge that we are gathered today in Mi'kma'ki. This is the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Today we gather with the intent, followed by the living peace and friendship treaties with respect, cooperation, and coexistence, and we are thankful for that. We'll call the meeting to order. Our counselors are all here. We have a guest with our fire chief, Connor Vino, is here, and he'll be giving us a report shortly. And CAO and Deputy CAO are here as well. So you have an agenda that was emailed to you. Entertain a motion to either amend the agenda and then consider it for approval, or move that it be accepted as presented. What is your wish?
Move as
Councilor
presented.
Wilson?
I'm sorry,
And
just say
Councilor
me.
Now seconds?
Yep.
Okay. On the question. All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. The first item on the agenda, the minutes of the regular meeting of April 13th, 2021. Councilor Feeney?
Here, I'd move that the minutes of the regular meeting of April 13th, 2021 be approved as submitted.
Thank you.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councilor Now. On the question, all in favor? That motion is carried. Let's go to the special meeting, a budget meeting of April the 19th.
I'll do the honors again.
Councilor Burdick, are you moving to accept? And Councilor Carver, you're seconding? Thank you. On the question, all in favor? The motion is carried. And finally, the second special meeting of April the 22nd, 2021. Also a budget meeting. Councilor Carver?
I move that the minutes of the special meeting of April 22nd, 2021 be accepted as circulated.
Thank you. Councilor Now? Second? You've heard the motion. On the question, all in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you. Let's go right to our presentation. Our new fire chief, Connor Vino, will do his first quarterly report on our fire department. Chief, if you please.
Thank you. So as you might have heard, I was elected back in January. Never did get to meet all the councilors yet, but thank you for this time, for having me at the meeting through the internet. So you had time to look through my report. I won't read through the whole thing if you guys don't want me to. If you guys got any questions, I'll try to answer them. I would like to add to the report right quick that we did just have 5 MFRs trained. The MFR stands for Medical First Responder. So we have 5 people that was just recently trained last weekend to assist with EHS. So that's a little bit more for the community and the outskirts to help protect and serve our community and town. And we did also donate 9 sets of old bunker gear to Victoria County. Some of the departments up there are very, very small, and they don't have a lot of money for operating and to buy equipment. Even though it was old to us, it might be new to them. And we didn't need it. Like, we only got so much room, and it'll be really nice once we move to the new station. It'll be like, where do we put everything, right? But if you guys got any questions or anything, if you feel free to ask away, and I'll do my best to try to answer them.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Feeney?
Chief, congratulations on your relatively new appointment. We certainly appreciate your service. We are in the midst of budget deliberations, and one of the line items for, I think, the year after next or the year after that is the new pumper truck. And I know that in speaking with a couple of your members last week, that there's a committee that is being established within the department to start thinking about the truck and what you're going to need and when you're going to need it. And more importantly, I guess from our perspective, is start to think about how much it's going to cost. We have a line item in the budget, but it seems to be evolving, and it doesn't strike me is it's going to be enough to fulfill the needs based on a report from your predecessor last year. So that it might be appropriate for you to come back with some of those preliminary findings so that we can factor that into our budget deliberation soon. So I don't know, Chief, if you have an opinion about where that issue stands, but we'd certainly like to hear your thinking about the pumper, when and kind of how much it's going to be over the next month or so as we finalize the budget.
Yeah, no, that's, I thank you for bringing that up. We actually, I believe we're going to try to have a truck committee meeting next week. Like I said, I had to shut everything down the other day due to COVID, due to the lockdown. So I said, that's my biggest fear is to keep everybody safe. And I said, like, a lot of the people don't know how to use the Zoom yet. And I said, actually, it's new to me. But like, we can try to, we're going to try to have a meeting next week, I believe. And once we have that meeting, we can go over the basic, like, get a little bit more in detail, and then I should be able to come back, or I can even maybe forward the information off to the mayor, and then, or maybe even sometime, like, maybe we can have a special meeting, or just like meet just like outside council, like it wouldn't have to be an actual council meeting, maybe just to get the basic, like the basic stuff, and then we can move forward with it then.
Okay, thank you. Just before we go to the CAO, Connor, do you know everyone that you're looking at on the screen?
The only people I can see on the screens, myself and you, Mayor. I'm actually had technical difficulties on my laptop, so I'm actually on my phone right now.
Okay.
But I think I know most of the councillors.
Okay. I wonder, Kelly, if you were to just say your name, if it may light up as the speaker on his phone. If you go off mute, it really works good. Okay.
I'll say
Francis,
hello. Hi, Connor. Can you see me?
Yeah, no, I can see you. How are you?
Okay, let's do
Hi,
that.
Connor. So when any of us speak, we'll be highlighted on your screen.
And I'm
Yeah.
sorry, when I was yapping away there for a minute, my machine was turned off. So we have met previously about 10 minutes ago. Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, so we're good.
And Councillor Carver. Alice?
Hi, Connor. I'm Alice Burdick. I'm newish too. So
Okay.
there are a few of us who just joined council this past fall. So we're all sort of doing it together. Nice to meet you, and thanks for your report. You all are doing incredible work.
Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you. And like I said, it's sort of different that we can't see each other like face to face in the same room, but hopefully someday we'll be able to do that again once COVID's in the background behind us, hopefully.
Deputy Mayor?
Hi, Connor. Nice to meet you. It's a pleasure. I don't think we've met each other, but I'm, I guess, the new deputy mayor for this session.
Nice to meet you, and thank you. And we're here to keep everybody safe and to protect the town and the outskirts.
Yeah, well, thank you for what you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm just going across my screen here. Thank you, Francis. You've met Mr. Hyde, the CAO. You certainly know Councillor Now,
Yes.
and you've just spoken with Councillor Feeney and Deputy CAO. Connor's met with you before, I would assume?
Yes, I know Connor too. Nice to see you, Connor.
There you go. Okay, well, it's an interesting opportunity when a new council and now meeting a new fire chief who's an integral part of the Mahone Bay team. CAO, you had a comment on the last point that was made.
Yeah, well, further to the introductions anyway, I guess it's a good segue. Connor meets regularly with staff. So Luke and myself, have had a number of meetings with him and other members of the department. So to Councillor Feeney's point about the budgets, rest assured the department does have a lot of input into the budget and we'll continue to meet with them. As you know, council has a plan to meet with the Fire Society in the relatively near future, but leaving that aside, I want everybody to know that that the department does have regular contact about the budget and any estimates that go into it. So just we have a pretty regular meeting at this point.
Back and
Not
forth
a set
pretty
day.
well.
We're kind of working towards a set day, I would think. But yeah, so lots of meetings.
And I would think COVID will now define how we meet if we try to do so.
Yes,
Okay.
it's very, very hard to try to do anything right now. Like I said, I had to cancel everything. The only thing that we're allowed to do now is still respond to emergency calls, and we're following all the guidelines and social distancing when we can, and making sure when all the apparatus comes back that it's disinfected. And that's my biggest fear is to keep everybody safe, and we got to try to keep our families and the public safe too.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Fire Chief? No? Connor, did you have anything that you'd like to add?
Just like to thank the council for their support for well, I don't say everything since I become chief in the new year, since January, and we're very pleased to see that the new station's coming along quite nice. That's all I have at this time.
Okay. We should be thanking you and your members because you are there doing the work that you're doing in spite of COVID and the kind of threat that it is. We and our families can sleep better at night knowing that you and your crew are there if we need you.
We're only a phone call away.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connor.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Okay. Let's go to the next item. We have no correspondence action items. We have a number of items for information in the correspondence list. What is your wish? Deputy Mayor?
There's one element, one letter there that I probably would want to highlight, the letter from Jane and Bob Uden. I was sort of wondering, they made an offer to meet with council, and in light of the fact that affordable housing is I guess a key strategic pillar for ourselves, I was wondering whether council would be interested in meeting and talking about the opportunity and potential to influence him to maybe do more than 20% before he submits his application, basically.
Okay. Councillor Burdick.
Thank you. I think that would be a great idea. It does seem like a really great opportunity. I did have some questions that were raised by the letter itself that I was wondering if we could get more clarification on, and maybe if we met, that would be the time to do that, because I can't ask sort of rhetorical questions now if they're not here.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I'd be interested in talking more about that.
I believe that would be his plan, to have just that kind of a session. Councillor Carver?
Yes, I'd certainly be in favor of that kind of discussion as well, but, could I go on to a different topic, which is number 5.7? And to make a motion to send a letter of thanks to the swing band for their donation. Making the motion now before the motion to receive and file.
Okay.
Is there a seconder?
Seconded by Councillor Burdick. Okay. Are you asking a question, Councillor Burdick?
I also have a question.
Okay.
Too. I am seconding that, but I have a question too, if that's okay.
Okay.
I wondered what the check amount was for, if that's information that we can get here. I don't know if that's information that we can receive.
I was wondering the same thing. CAO, do you recall what the check value was from the swing band?
I don't, and I didn't actually have access to it myself, but I'll check in with Luke.
Okay. Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, just before we take that vote, I was under the impression it was our convention when we had a letter from a potential developer that, out of courtesy to the rest of the members of the PAC, it would be appropriate to kind of forward the letter from Made for Nova Scotia to the PAC members for their, to keep everyone in the loop on items that will be coming to that committee before it comes to council down the road. So I think after we vote on Councillor Carver's motion on the letter, which I expect will go through, I think I'll follow up with maybe making a motion to send the Made for Nova Scotia letter to the PAC.
Okay. On the motion that Councillor Carver made and Councillor Burdick seconded, to send a note of thank you for the donation to the Mahone Bay Swing Band. Any further questions? All in favor? That motion is carried. Now, before we deal with the motion to receive and file, which has been moved and seconded, Councillor Feeney, you had another?
Mayor, I'd move that the letter 5.2 from the proponents from Made for Nova Scotia and 544 Main Street be forwarded to all of the members of the PAC to keep them up to date.
Okay. Seconded by Councillor Now.
Yes, as the head of the chair of PAC, I think it's certainly be appreciated by the members to get that kind of a heads up that this will be coming, because we don't have a meeting coming up this month because there wasn't anything for the agenda, but it'd be nice for them to have the heads up on that letter.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on the second motion? That we share the correspondence to council with the PAC membership? All in favor? The motion is carried. Let's now go to the original motion, which was to receive and file the court. Okay, you got another question? Do you have another question, Councillor Burdick?
Yes, Mayor, I do. It's not so much a question, but I just wanted to point out there was a letter there about our CAO's service, his long service award, and
Yeah.
I think that would be great to congratulate Dylan for his work.
Agreed. Okay. CAO, we were going to get to that after the motion, but to recognize the correspondence that we have received from CAMA in recognition of your 10 years as a CAO. And luckily for us, the last 3.5 years has been here in Mahone Bay. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perhaps, council, we could do a letter just to recognize that and ask that it be placed on Mr. Hyde's file. Can I get a motion for that? Moved by Councillor Feeney, seconded by Councillor Wilson. On the question, all in favor? That motion is carried. So we will get that letter done. Now, the motion to receive and file the rest of the correspondence. Councillor Carver.
Mayor, I'm not sure that there ever was a motion to receive and file. When I first spoke up, I said before we get to the motion of to receive and file, I would like to make a motion. So unless the deputy clerk has a record.
Deputy CAO, do you have any indication of a motion?
Have a name for someone having made that motion.
Pardon me?
I do not have a name for someone having made that motion.
Okay.
I'll move to receive and file.
Deputy Mayor?
So I made a suggestion, and I was wondering, do I need to put a motion in for that? Because somebody said yes, that would be a good idea, but nobody else suggested. So I wasn't very sure whether you folks are willing or interested in having a conversation with the Maid for Nova Scotia before they file their application. Do I need a motion for that, to invite them?
For him to come and meet with council?
Yes. I don't need to make a motion if it's of no interest. That's why I did not put in the motion. I just wanted to gauge the interest first.
Oh, okay. If you'd like to make that motion, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we invite Maid for Nova Scotia to come and discuss their plans for the former shoe store with a name to discuss the affordability issues and in alignment with the town strategic plan.
Seconded by Councillor Burdick. Councillor Hyde, or I'm sorry, CAO Hyde.
10 years as a CAO, now I'm a counselor. I just wanted to, because we've had this conversation before, but it'd be new for these new members of council. When we have a request from an entity like this, they typically say they'd like to have a meeting in closed session. The grounds of the MGA are pretty clear, and the deputy mayor suggested this would be to hear about their plans, which is not a protected category under the MGA. So we can't really offer a meeting in closed session. I will say council has in the past been asked to meet in private to hear only from someone, and council has accepted that on occasion. But in terms of the request to meet in closed session, I would say you could meet in open session, or you could not meet, but simply hear from someone, because that has been council's past practice. And I'll cite our MP who insists on doing that when she meets with council. So obviously it's good for some, but I just wanted to note that the request is to have an in-camera session, and based on what's been proposed, I don't think there's an argument to hold that discussion in closed session.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So we would still respond to his offer and have him come to meet with council. This is Deputy Mayor, where we would have an opportunity to have that discussion. I have talked with Mr. Uden, and he went at great lengths to explain to me how he has flexibility within his CMHC agreement to adjust the rent fees for his various apartments. And I asked him if, when he came to council, he would come prepared to give us an explanation of that whole number crunching piece. So I think the offer he's making to us would afford us an opportunity to not only discuss his building plans, but also the financial aspects of the housing that's affordable angle on these projects. So if you were willing and your seconder to withdraw your motion, then we can merely accept his offer to come and brief council in camera.
Except not in camera, just
Yeah.
not in, just not in a session of council. The
That's right,
difference
not
is,
in-
and just for anybody to know, the difference between a session that is in camera or in closed session, and just having a briefing with some entity, is that closed session has protections in terms of privacy. So everyone in the closed session is bound to confidentiality. We can't offer that type of protection outside of a convened meeting. Although obviously people can be bound to to not say anything. That would be their own commitment under their own, wouldn't be enforceable under the MGA.
So
I'm given to understand that he is still in negotiations on some property pieces. And I believe that is why he was interested in an in-camera session for his protection in his contract negotiating. However,
Protection of business secrets is often a reason to
Is-
be in closed session. It's just not a reason under the Municipal Government Act.
okay,
so my thoughts were we can just offer it, and if he says I can only do it in closed session, that's fine. We can say we can't offer it in closed session, but still offer, because he's indicated he would be willing to meet us in closed session. We can say, well, we can't meet you in closed session, but you can receive a presentation from you. It just gives us the opportunity, and if he turns it down, that's fine. It's a choice.
okay. And I think it would be important that we make sure that Mr. Uden understands the session is not in camera, but rather, as the deputy mayor suggests, is a closed session. Councillor Carver, you look puzzled.
Mayor, this is an
No.
open set. Mayor,
Just considering all the subtleties of the difference between a
Yeah.
briefing meeting and
Yeah.
a closed session or in-camera session. So I understand that we're going to be having a briefing meeting with Mr. Uden.
Just a briefing. You can drop the second word.
A briefing,
Just
thank you.
brief.
Very interesting.
Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, so if I understand the deputy mayor's offer, which I think is a fair offer, it's to make council available to hear a briefing, which will be a public meeting. Will not be a closed session, will not be in camera, will be a public meeting. Is that what I understand?
CAO.
So that's essentially an option, Councillor Feeney, is to say we can have a public meeting. But I think what was being discussed here is the developer is presumed to want to provide council with information that they would not want to share with the general public.
Yeah, fair enough.
He wants
Fair
to
enough.
give council some insight as to what his plans are at this point.
No, I think we all empathize with developers requirement and desire to have some level of discretion and confidentiality. It's just as long as we can find a mechanism to make that happen, it's I'm all for it. So
Okay.
whether we can accomplish that through the deputy mayor's motion, which I'm happy to support, or we need something slightly different, I'll probably support that too.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, so my thoughts are something that the CEO pointed out is that we've met with the MLA, is it the MLA or the MP in the past in a sort of briefing capacity. Wasn't a closed set, wasn't an in-camera session, was it? So I'm assuming something similar to that.
Yeah, it was closed to the public.
Yeah, but not in camera, was it?
No, you're
We're
correct,
bound
Deputy
by
Mayor.
rules of confidentiality, like.
No, we explicitly went through this process last year and then determined, so this year we didn't have as much discussion about it, but we determined last year that the session would be a briefing wherein the minister was going to provide council with updates from the federal government. and it was not a published session of council.
Public
We did go did go through a lot, having tried it the other way, and but that's where we ended up to respect what was being requested of us by that party, and I believe that's sort of the precedent here.
So then the deputy mayor's motion, which Councillor Burdick has seconded, is to respond to Mr. Uden's letter and accept his offer to brief council. Okay? Questions? If there are no questions, all in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. Thank you. I got two screens going on here. So
I think I made a motion to receive and file.
that's right. Who seconded? No
I
one
will.
did. Councillor
I will.
Feeney just did. Richard, Councillor now, Deputy Mayor, everybody wants to second it. Councillor Feeney was in first. All in favor to receive and filed? Motion's carried. Whew. Let's go to staff reports. The end of the month. CAO and Deputy CAO. Over to you.
Well, as usual, we're here to answer questions. It is the second meeting of the month, so this would normally be the full update. We're not updating the templates on the strategic plan and the budget anymore, as we're now into a new strategic plan and a new budget. But because both of those are in draft format, it's our expectation that we'll put those on a whole new section with the new strategic plan action items, which thankfully is a little briefer than the previous one, so it should fit little bring down the length of our staff report. But for now, all of the first sheet reports from management and statistical analysis is up there. I did want to note that we had a mistake in the collection of the information for the statistics section, and I did send out some water and electrical information separately. Had thought that was in there, so we just got a little crossed wires on our end, and that will appear in the next official version for the public to be able to review as well. So yeah, I'll take questions if there are any.
Questions? Councillor Wilson. You're still on mute, Councillor.
Do we want to talk about the water situation now or later when we come to that letter?
CAO?
So if you have questions on anything relating to the water, including the stats in here, you can bring it up on this item.
Okay, then I will, because I guess no one else was. When I saw the inclusion later on after this report, that we are now basically dumping about 65 to 70% of the water we pump out of the lake straight into the bay after we treat it, where it was about 55% 3 months ago. Now it's nearly 70. I have to confess, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I don't think, maybe people don't understand how serious this is. If 2/3 of our water is going through our treatment plant and straight into the bay, it means that it cuts the life of everything we have up on that hill, which is a big, big investment, including all the filter membranes and all of the other stuff that's up there. It cuts their life expectancy by a factor of 3. Not to mention the fact that we paid 3 times as much for pumping as we should be, 3 times as much for chemicals as we should be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, when we went through this 5 or 6 years ago, it was about 50% loss. And I must say, without a great deal of fanfare, the director of operations went and I guess borrowed or begged or rented some equipment. They spent a lot of time at night listening to the pipes to try and figure out where the water was going, because when everybody's asleep, there shouldn't be any usage. And over the course of about 6 months, they solved most of the problem. And they didn't have to go out and spend $60,000 on capital for new equipment to do it. And they didn't have to spend another $30,000 on ancillary stuff to do it. And it puzzles me why we can't seem to do that now.
CAO?
Well, the simplest answer is we didn't do it then. And I think it's obvious because you can just look at the stats. You can't fix all of those leaks and then 5 years later be back at it. I've talked to the staff in question. Nobody is able to prove that there was a reduction in losses. So we did make an effort. I can agree that an effort was made. But I think we understood that that effort was unsuccessful, being where we are today. So now we're looking at what we can do that would really make an impact. And I think we have some good plans. I think it is a top priority for council.
Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Feeney.
So I share your concern, Councillor Wilson, but I also want to have confidence in staff having thought through it and having gone through it, that they have this plan that they've put forward to us in good faith. And when we approve the budget, my hope is that when the equipment is here, when the diagnosis has been done, 6 months down the road or a year down the road, we'll not be talking about the same thing. So I think I hear you, and I see the challenge we faced with. Yes, it's a huge loss, and we should be concerned. So I share that pain, but I also want to say, let's support staff so that they can be able to do the job that's required and do that through the budget. Sort of, I would say, give them as much rope as they need for now, and then we can figure out what to do when we don't see the results later, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor Feeney, and then the CAO.
Mayor, so on both sides, I think we're all very concerned with the volume of loss. It is a staggering percentage. I can't help but think back at the discussion we had a month and a half ago about issuing a credit when a customer of the utility didn't realize that they had essentially consumed 25 years worth of water in 1 month, or whatever that. It was an unbelievable a million liters or something like that, or 680,000 liters in a month, and didn't realize that their taps were running. So I do wonder if this is if there is also something on the other end, on the billing side, like on the metering side as well. So it might not just be water lost. It also could be just water that could be a function of the meters. So I'm out of my depth clearly here on determining what the challenge is, but I think if we're going to resolve the issue over time, we have to look at both sides of the equation, both the metering piece and obviously the leaks in the pipe. I'm sure the CAO probably is, I'm sure you're in agreement with, who knows how old the water meters are in most homes. I mean, I'm sure the one of mine's got to be 30 years old or 40 years old.
Oh, yeah. CAO?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point. It really is a multi-layered process. And I don't mean to be flippant. I mean, if there was a magic bullet to solve this issue, you believe staff would have taken it. I just, I also feel that it's necessary to dispel the idea that staff can tweak some things in the water system and reduce these leaks. What has to happen is investment in the water system capital infrastructure, whether that's meters or whether that's mains or whether that's laterals. We're working our way through getting the information and correcting it, and council, as I say, have already understood that and put it in the strategic plan. And if you look at your top capital priorities, they're water line replacement, targeting the oldest and largest, most significant lines. So, all of the pieces are in place. And if Megan could just go around a few nights and listen for some leaks and put a Band-Aid on them, like, we would do that, but we are where we are because the lines are over 70 years old, not because we haven't been, going around in the evenings. So I don't know, if there's some folks who worked with the town 5-6 years ago who are not available to us today and have some expertise, I'm happy to talk to them too. But I think our current staff are working hard to develop a plan that will be presented to council. So we've talked about some of the aspects of it, and we have a budget tentatively to support that in the draft budget.
I would say that when Councillor Wilson was on council, not the last council, but the one before that again, was more than just a few Band-Aids on pipes here and there. It was a major hole in the street right in front of the Mug and Anchor where one of the major leaks was supposed to have been, and it was fixed, and then the street was put back. Unfortunately, the CAO has changed. Our water treatment center manager has changed. But at the time, there was a very reportedly a marked decrease in the amount of water that was being lost after we did that dig down at the Mug and Anchor. So I would just say that it was more than just a Band-Aid fix.
And yet we know that's one of the oldest
something else
pieces
is broken now. So
yeah, that piece of line, the whole piece that a small leak might have been repaired on, is not any better or newer. So, if you've got an old piece of infrastructure like that and you can get in there and dig it up and patch it, most likely the very next year another break will happen and another break will happen. And I'm not saying it's not worth trying. But at the end of the day, I think we know the solution. The solution is to invest in the system, and it won't
end
be
to
free.
end. Invest in it end to end and not try to fix spots.
We should still try to fix some spots if we can identify some target spots.
If I can remember correctly, we reduced our losses by about 20% after those fixes were done. And there were some major valves that were changed out, but obviously it's gone again and it's even worse, up to 70%. Anyway, Councillor Wilson. You done? Okay. Let's go back to our staff reports. Other questions? Okay, nothing? All right. Entertain a motion to accept the report as presented. Moved by Councillor Burdick, seconded by Councillor Feeney. On the motion or on the question? All in favor? The motion is carried. Let's go to Staff Appreciation Day. Appropriate that COVID has resurged back into the news, and the Premier and the medical officer are going to be on tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and they're talking about further restrictions that they're talking about implementing. And we hear about the people working on the front line, the truck drivers, the grocery store and food vendors, certainly the health professionals working with the people who have been affected, and the support people within those health institutions as well. Certainly deserve a vote of thanks from all Nova Scotians. I think in Mahone Bay, our staff deserve a vote of thanks for the effort that they have undertaken. They're working from home, they're hell west and crooked. They're rather disconnected from their base of operations. We did have an opportunity to say thank you to the staff about 7 or 8 months ago. And I believe it is time for us to say thank you for the staff, to the staff once again. And I would suggest that council consider a letter to each and every employee of the town, from the CAO down, to thank them for what they have given to all of the citizens throughout this COVID piece, and to offer them, in the way of recognition, a day off. Something that the managers can support. It works for the manager's work schedule, but it's a day that the citizens or the staff would want to have. And I do think in the next mayor's newsletter, which will be coming out at the end of May, the mayor will do a piece in that, thanking the staff for their efforts and noting the support of council, which I hope is going to be unanimous for this. If somebody would like to make a motion. Councillor Carver moves. Do we have a seconder?
I would be more than pleased to make that motion.
Thank you. Councillor Burdick seconds. Does anyone have a question or a comment on the motion?
I just want
Councillor Fee, you have a question?
Oh, sorry, Mayor. I think, you know, the sequencing of when this day is going to be, you know, I think we've got a couple excellent holidays coming up, Victoria Day and of course Canada Day, and there happens to be Canada Day falls oddly on a Thursday this year, so a Friday off would give you an extra bonus. But you know, I'm assuming we're just going to leave this in the hands of the CAO to determine when staff could best take advantage of this day of appreciation.
I think that would be appropriate. CAO, you would agree?
Yeah, well, we have certainly had the opportunity to talk about our schedules. I'm sure we could find the best day.
Okay. Councillor Carver, did you have a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to build on your comments about the appreciation for our staff in particular, who we know have worked long hours in difficult situations and much overtime that I'm sure isn't taken back at all. So it is with deep appreciation for that I was happy to make the motion.
Thank you. Any other comments? CAO?
Well, on behalf of staff, I just wanted to say that this is certainly an appreciated gesture from the council. So just thanks very much, everyone, for your statements and your willingness.
Okay. I see Mr. Wenzel has joined us.
Just jumped in.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you. Let's go to committee reports. The Asset Management Committee, the report is in your package. Questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
As part of that committee, one of the things that I was trying to raise at that committee and was suggested that I bring it up at council was the previous council had a very good opportunity, I believe, to talk about the renovations to town council, the town council chambers and the building, vis-a-vis some of the work that's going on with the fire hall piece and how those are related and the significant amount of money we're putting into the council chambers currently. And in my mind, when I look at these two things, I keep asking myself whether the decisions we've made are for a short term, are we just fixing or patching things up, or are we thinking long term in terms of the assets we have? And so I was wondering whether there would be a point when we can discuss that item, whether it's in a closed session or in a public session, to just get a better idea as to are we really banking on the investment we put in now, that it will be something that we're not throwing away good money after bad money, so to speak. And then maybe there's a report somewhere that can provide that clarity. If it is, then it would be great to share it with us.
CAO, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I think I kind of missed the introduction to that a little bit, but if we're speaking about the town hall specifically, so as you know, I think the town was in the town hall that we're currently in 1919 when the town was incorporated. We were away from that building for a couple of years in the 20s and have been there again ever since. Over the last, we'll say, couple of decades, there hasn't been a lot of reinvestment in the building. So certain things have fallen behind the times, and we've caught a lot of those, some intentionally, some unintentionally, with this latest renovation. When council looked at the renovation in 2018, we were certainly looking at it as addressing a lot of deferred maintenance, some requirements under the fire code, and other safety necessities. The project has developed from there, but those core elements of the project, and as including the unanticipated repairs that have come up as we get into that, are really all aimed at allowing the town to continue to use that building going forward, to provide essential administrative service. Council obviously can have discussions about the best way to welcome the public into various proceedings, and as we build a new public building with the fire station and have some public spaces there, council may elect more commonly to utilize some of those spaces for things like hearings and other sessions. But other than that, as a primary administrative building, my expectation is the town hall would certainly be able to continue to serve in that function for at least another 10 years on the basis of this work that's been done. And given the debt load, and Luke's here now, given the debt load in association with the fire station project, I think our decision in 2018 was predicated on the idea that we would not do, another major building project or otherwise replace the town hall building. There is some analysis from that time that I can provide around. Maybe you can remind me, Deputy Mayor. But at the end of the day, it's about taking care of the property we have and being able to continue to use it. And from a staff perspective, we're certainly very appreciative to have a safe and functional space to work in, and note that we probably would work in it no matter what. So we went for many years without deferring, or while deferring that necessary work on that building, and staff continued to work in the building and council continued to meet in the building. But just because we did continue to do so, doesn't mean it was adequate to those purposes. So yeah, I would say that we did understand when the decision was made that there were alternatives in terms of replacing the building, in terms of leasing other spaces and building a new structure, and those were analyzed. But it was, this was the decision that was made, and obviously we're living with it now. So I can provide some additional background from that time. But I think to your question, staff are more than comfortable with the idea that the town office would continue to serve for another decade at least.
Councillor Burdick.
This is more about the other side of the asset, which is not necessarily a monetary value, but the value of having a building that's right downtown there, that has been used as a town hall for quite a while now. There's something really wonderful about a small town with, official buildings basically on the main street, and that is really appealing about that location. And now the building, as it's being renovated, to being more useful to a wider variety of people. I think it was a good decision to maintain it and update it. Thank you.
Councillor Feeney.
So, I think the deputy mayor makes a good point about, sometimes you have a strategy and sometimes strategies thrust upon you. So, I think he makes the point. I agree with the deputy mayor that, we haven't formalized the perspective that we have at least a 10-year life curve of the town hall in its current configuration post these $250,000 of renovations. That seems like a pretty good timeline to me, 10 years at least. let's say 10 years or so, a couple terms. But I think to put it in context, it was only 4 years ago that we were really doing quite a bit of evaluation around the town hall, and maybe a new town hall and a new building, whether it was in conjunction with the fire hall or as a standalone facility. So, I think we've ended up in a good place. I think, I'm personally pretty comfortable with the investment that we've made, giving it an extra 10 years of life with our, really our responsibilities as a community to the people who work there. I mean, you have to have a minimum quality of, of the dwelling, of the building, so that staff can show up to work there comfortably and safely every day. So I think we've gone a long way. But I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing at a future asset management committee meeting to start formalizing internally that whether that it's a 10-year or 12-year or 14-year life curve of the building, eventually there will need to be another building committee. We'll have to reevaluate, for the long term. The good news is that we're not going to have, maybe we don't have to do that for 4 or 5 more years, but eventually that day will come. We'll have to have that conversation again.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I appreciate the added information. So to say, I'm not implying that it's a bad decision. What I was saying is that I don't have the background, and when I see us investing the kind of money we've invested there, and based on, I guess, my understanding of thinking about investment, I keep asking myself that question. And so it's something that I thought I need a little bit more to understand how that came about. And if it's something we're going to have to discuss in 10 years' time, like you say, as an asset, we need to have very good answers as to what our plans would be in those 10 years. 10 years will go by pretty quickly. We'll soon, like you said, in 5 years' time, we'll have to start having those conversations. So what's next? What will happen? So I thank you, and I'll definitely be following up, Dylan, on the report that you mentioned.
And of course, as an asset management piece for the town, we get into the whole notion of the reserve fund being established 5, 6, 7 years out of a date when one might consider building a new place for town hall, for council, sort of thing. Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay. Let's do anything under new business. Okay. Hearing none. Do we have anyone watching at home?
Your worship, yes, we have people watching us right now. We have 10 people watching at the moment, but we have no questions.
No questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you to the 10 people at home who have stayed with us since 7 o'clock, and entertain a motion to go in camera. Moved by Councillor Now, seconded by Councillor Feeney. All in favor? We will go in camera. Let's